The Antikythera Mechanism story resurfaced in 1900 when a group of sponge divers sought shelter from a storm near Antikythera. Diving into the clear Aegean waters, one surfaced in shock, claiming to have seen a heap of dead bodies, which turned out to be bronze and marble statues strewn across the seabed. Over the next months, divers hauled up treasures from a Roman-era shipwreck. Jewelry, glassware, sculptures, and, unnoticed at first, a corroded lump of bronze and wood. This unassuming fragment, later recognized as the Antikythera Mechanism, would prove to be the wreck's most priceless discovery, rewriting the history of ancient technology. The question of who created the Antikythera Mechanism remains one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. Some scholars point to the island of Rhodes, a hub of astronomical expertise in the Hellenistic era, where Hipparchus may have contributed the lunar models used in the device. Others suggest a connection to Archimedes, whose legendary engineering skills and interest in celestial motion could have inspired its design. Inscriptions hint at Corinthian dialect influences, adding yet another twist. Whoever its maker, this was no ordinary craftsman. It was the work of a mastermind, blending science, mathematics, and artistry into a single mechanical marvel. These technologies allowed them to virtually peel away the corrosion, exposing intricate gear teeth, pin and slot systems, and faint inscriptions, invisible to the naked eye. Each discovery pushed back the timeline of human technological achievement by over a millennium, proving that the ancient Greeks had reached a mechanical sophistication no one had believed possible. The mechanism was no longer just a relic, it was a time machine into the minds of ancient engineers. Wahahahaha! The unraveling of the Antikythera Mechanism's secrets began in the early 20th century, but progress was painfully slow. After its discovery in 1901 by sponge divers near the island of Antikythera, the corroded fragments were brought to Athens, where archaeologists quickly realized they were looking at something extraordinary. But they lacked the tools to fully understand it. For decades, the mechanism was little more than a curiosity, its complexity hidden beneath layers of encrusted bronze. It wasn't until the 1970s when British historian Derek J. de Solla Price conducted X-ray studies that its astonishing gearwork was revealed. Price's research hinted at an ancient astronomical computer, but even his analysis only scratched the surface. In the early 2000s, a team of scientists launched the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, employing cutting-edge 3D X-ray tomography and high-resolution surface imaging. A small subsidiary dial even indicated the exeligmos cycle, 3 Saros cycles, or 54 years, allowing for even more refined eclipse predictions. Another dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, suggesting the device may have also been used to time major cultural events alongside astronomical ones. Together, these interconnected systems transformed the mechanism into a portable cosmos, a miniature universe that a learned Greek could hold in his hands, turning a simple crank to watch the heavens unfold before his eyes. The moon's motion was particularly ingenious. Its uneven speed across the sky, caused by its elliptical orbit, was replicated through a pin and slot mechanism hidden deep within the gearwork, a level of sophistication no one imagined the ancients capable of. On the back of the device were two spiral dials, the upper one representing the 19-year metonic cycle, crucial for predicting lunar phases and aligning solar and lunar calendars, and the lower one tracking the 223-month Saros cycle, enabling the prediction of solar and lunar eclipses. To truly appreciate the genius of the Antikythera Mechanism, one must picture its structure as it once was, before centuries of seawater and corrosion reduced it to a jumbled mass of greened bronze and splintered wood. The device was likely housed in a wooden case, about the size of a shoebox, fitted with doors or panels on the front and back that bore inscriptions in ancient Greek, serving as both labels and operating instructions. On the front face were two large concentric circular scales, the outer ring marked with the 365-day Egyptian calendar, and the inner ring divided into the 12 signs of the zodiac, each corresponding to a 30-degree segment of the ecliptic, through which the sun appeared to move during the year. Small pointers, driven by the gears inside, would glide across these scales to indicate the current position of the sun and moon. Their movements synchronized with astonishing precision. Every gear in the mechanism had a purpose, some driving the front dials that tracked the sun and moon through the zodiac, others calculating the timing of eclipses with uncanny accuracy. Its inscriptions, faint yet legible under modern imaging, revealed detailed operating instructions, as if the maker intended it to be both a scientific instrument and a teaching tool. The ship that carried it may have been bound for a wealthy patron or a royal court, perhaps even the Library of Pergamon or Alexandria, where such a wonder could have served as both a research device and a demonstration of Greek mastery over the heavens. But somewhere along its journey, fate intervened, whether by storm, navigational error, or piracy, and the ship was lost to the sea, its cargo sinking silently into the depths, where it would remain untouched for 2 millennia, waiting for divers to rediscover its secret. The Greece of the 2nd century BC was a civilization in transition, still basking in the intellectual glory of the classical age, but now deeply influenced by the conquests of Alexander the Great, whose empire had spread Greek culture from Egypt to the edges of India. In the bustling cities of the Hellenistic world, Alexandria, Pergamon, Rhodes, knowledge flowed like a living river, mixing mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and engineering into a single current of human curiosity. It was in this environment that the seeds of the Antikythera Mechanism's creation were sown. The island of Rhodes, in particular, was home to a thriving school of astronomers and engineers, where figures like Hipparchus studied the precise movements of celestial bodies with an obsessive dedication. Some historians believe the mechanism may have originated here, possibly constructed by a workshop that blended the astronomical theories of Hipparchus with the mechanical ingenuity inspired by Archimedes. But in the truest meaning of the word, a device that took an input, processed it mechanically, and produced an output of stunning accuracy. And yet, for more than 1,000 years after it sank beneath the waves, no device of comparable complexity would appear anywhere in the historical record, leading some to call it an out-of-place artifact, a lonely ambassador from a lost chapter of human knowledge. On its front, 2 concentric dials displayed the zodiac and a 365-day Egyptian calendar, while on its back, a series of spiral dials tracked complex astronomical cycles. The 19-year Metonic cycle of the moon, the 18-year Saros cycle predicting eclipses, and even the 4-year rhythm of the Olympic Games and other Pan-Hellenic festivals. By turning a crank on its side, the user could simulate the motions of the sun, moon, and planets, calculate the dates of future eclipses, and even account for the moon's strange, uneven speed across the sky. A phenomenon that modern astronomers call the lunar anomaly, which the Greeks modeled with ingenious pin-and-slot mechanisms hidden within the gears. It was in every sense a computer, not in the digital form we know today. And for what purpose? To answer that, we must travel back to a world lit by oil lamps, where the greatest minds of Greece walked among marble columns, debating the nature of the cosmos. This was an era shaped by the intellectual legacy of figures like Archimedes of Syracuse, whose war machines and mechanical wonders were the stuff of legend, and Hipparchus of Nicaea, whose mathematical genius advanced humanity's understanding of the heavens. The Antikythera Mechanism was a product of this environment, a fusion of craftsmanship and astronomical knowledge so advanced that even in the 21st century, scientists struggled to decode it. Encased originally in a wooden box, the device contained at least 30 bronze gears, each cut with meticulous precision and mounted on axles so fine that they meshed together with the grace of modern watchwork. It would take decades before the world began to understand the significance of this object. In 1902, Valerio Staes, an archaeologist at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, examined the fragments more closely. Through the crust of corrosion, his trained eye caught the unmistakable outline of a small, toothed gear. The sight was baffling. No one believed the ancient Greeks, for all their brilliance, had possessed complex gear mechanisms. Such precision engineering, it was thought, belonged to the clockmakers of medieval Europe, not to the craftsmen of antiquity. And yet, here it was, pulled from a shipwreck dating to the 1st century before Christ. Over time, careful study would reveal that the ship itself likely sank between 70 and 60 BC, while the mechanism it carried was older still, perhaps crafted between 100 and 150 BC. Some scholars believe it may even have been calibrated as early as 178 BC, during the Golden Age. On one of these dives, a man named Elias Stadiatis descended deep into the blue, fighting the pressure that crushed against his chest. And as his eyes adjusted to the dim underwater light, he found himself surrounded by the eerie forms of bronze and marble statues, their lifeless faces staring back at him from the seabed. What he had stumbled upon was no ordinary patch of ocean floor, but the grave of an ancient ship. Over the following months, divers brought to the surface an astonishing treasure trove. Life-size statues of gods and heroes, fine glassware, jewelry, coins, and amphorae. But among these priceless works of art was an object that seemed unworthy of the company it kept. A lump of corroded bronze and rotting wood, no larger than a shoebox, broken into several pieces. Over 2,000 years ago, long before the hum of electricity filled our cities, before the ticking of pocket watches and the glowing screens of smartphones, there existed a device so extraordinary that its sophistication would not be equaled for more than a millennium. This marvel of ancient engineering, known today as the Antikythera Mechanism, lay hidden from human eyes for centuries, resting silently at the bottom of the Aegean Sea. Shrouded in the darkness of the deep, its gears frozen in time, its purpose forgotten. The story begins in the spring of 1900, when a group of Greek sponge divers set out from the island of Symi, steering their small wooden boats into waters where they hoped to harvest sponges to sell in the bustling ports of the Mediterranean. As storms drove them to take shelter near the rugged and uninhabited island of Antikythera, they